That's quite big.
Hello everybody, it's me, Farham. We're here with some Path of Exile 2, and today we're going to be showcasing a new version of the Monk. We have got this down to a single bell to kill tier 4 bosses. It's just as proficient in Sims, if not more so. We're consistently getting 5 or 6 rewards all the way through Sims, well, apart from the first few waves where there's just not enough enemies spawning. So it's got those endgame tier 4 farms now down to a really proficient level. It's taken some more investment, but I think the investment is optional. We're going to talk about that. We've fixed certain holes with the build, so things like mana regen that were a massive problem. We're having to overtap our mana potion. Those problems have been fixed, and we've reduced the reliance on overabundance on the bell for bossing, which just makes it absolutely brutal. Anyway, let's start off. We'll go over to the passive tree. We'll have a look at the changes there. We're going to talk a little bit more about the jewels. We've gone to a heavy jewel focus on the passive tree. I'm going to talk about the optionality there and where budget can be saved and where we will still get good output from going to a jewel-based tree. But let's go straight over to these passives. Oh, I guess I should mention beforehand, there is pop in and a Maxroll in the build description. If you do want to take a look at those, please do so. Video will be in sections, so if you need clarity on anything, if there's particular topics, hopefully this will come in a way where you can just jump to a section, like look about, okay, what did we do to fix mana regen? What did we do to up the bell damage? And there'll be breakdowns of that in sections as well. That's how it's planned to be. Anyway, let's get into it. Hope you enjoy this one. Alright, so this passive tree, starting with the ascendancies. You're going to grab Lead Me Through Grace. To fit everything I'm going to show in this build, you need 275 Spirit. That's to fit Blink on when you're doing Trials of Chaos. You can actually get away with 265 because you don't need to run Precision, so you can cut a bit of budget on the chess piece for Lead Me Through Grace, but 265 is that magic number on the Spirit to make everything work. We're going to grab Sunder My Enemies. This is so critical hits ignore non-negative enemy monster elemental resistances. Because of this, we can basically ignore penetration. We crit all the time, so we just ignore enemy resistances. It's great. You want to grab I Am the Thunder and I Am the Blizzard for that extra 10% of damage as extra lightning and extra cold. They're really good. Going up onto the tree, we've gone back to the sort of octopus configuration at the start. This was in a lot of ways to get the extra mana regen from Step Like Mist. It was really helpful, but also just to keep ourselves topped up above 4,500 shield so that we can take a smack in the face from Arbiter if we need to. We've gone around to grab Essence of the Mountain for that extra freeze build up. We've dropped some freeze nodes later in the tree. Still go through Flow Like Water, up and grab Flow State, Crashing Wave, and Essence of the Storm. And then we come up and grab Moment of Truth for some crit. We're still pathing up towards the Witch Star, and then grabbing all of the elemental nodes for Echoing Frost, Echoing Thunder, and Echoing Flames. We get all 3 ailments out super quick, even in the boss fights. That is an instant boost up of damage, and it's considerable. Strongly recommend those nodes. Then we come down and grab Killer Instinct. It really is, this 50% damage really is good. I can't find something that gives more damage than that. Even going down to the 24% damage here and an 18% crit chance doesn't make up the 50% damage, of course. It's less than half. But there's just nothing that really seems to take those points. We've kept those in. Then we go down and grab our first jewel. We're grabbing jewels like this. I will do a section specifically on the jewels, and we will talk about them in some depth, but they're basically high damage jewels. We'll talk about the optionality there. They're quite expensive, but you can get some more budget ones for around the 10-15 range, and then badly rolled ones for about the 35 div range. That's where a lot of the expense of the build has come in, pushing into this sort of high budget version. We come up, we grab Resonance, we grab True Strike for the Jugular and Deadly Force still. We grab Deep Trance. We want to be running and Against the Darkness here. At this point, I would suggest you are looking to get the extra fire and extra cold damage here. You just want as much extra damage as you can. It works out as 36% extra damage as Elemental. It seems very powerful. I can't find a jewel that does more damage. Eternal Youth, so that we can hit our flask if we need to heal up to max 4682 shield. Remember, it doesn't heal over to the overflow, so running Grim Feast, Eternal Youth is only there to really catch you when you take the big hits, but it's really nice to have. Suggest spending that point there. Then we're going to have our From Nothing. So the From Nothing, you want to be grabbing at this point a Mind Over Matter one. They're only about 10 divines, and for that you want to be grabbing Breaking Point for the magnitude. Storm Charged, this we previously had on a neck. It's a great node, and all natural. The 30% increased elemental damage is nice there too. Oh yeah, don't forget as well, grab Spectral Ward. Extra energy shield is great. We're still Chaos Immune, CI, so come up, grab CI. We've dropped Heavy Frost now. The hits ignore non-negative elemental resistances of frozen enemies was kind of pointless. It was doubling up with Sunder my enemies. That's why we've taken the extra Frost early on. And we've also grabbed Thin Ice for... well, we're still grabbing Thin Ice, mostly for the freeze build-up. We don't freeze the bosses fast enough to get the 50% increased damage, but it does help a lot in Sims, so do strongly recommend that. It's more for the Sims side of things. We also grab Careful Assassin. Keep coming up around the tree. We've got Megalomaniac. Now for this, I recommend getting something that gives you stun resist, hallowed, asceticism, self-mortification, and then pick another skill or 2 skills that you like. Something that gives you more damage. You can't get Maiming Strike, which you probably can't. Then stick Maim in your charge staff instead of perpetual charge. I'll cover that when we go into the skill breakdown there, however. And we'll do a little bit more of a cover off on that jewel. That's just as we're flying around the tree here. You want to grab Patient Barrier, and then we've gone around and grabbed a Sapphire. I recommend getting at least 1 Sapphire on the build for the maximum energy as stun threshold. It just helps you stop getting stunned in Sims. Coming back down the tree here, still grabbing Throat Seeker, and then coming down to grab our Controlled Metamorphosis. With the Controlled Metamorphosis, you want a large ring, and you want to be grabbing one with the River, Serrated Edges, Manifold Method. This is really important. Mana sucks on the build. That 50% mana leech is huge. And Enhanced Reflexes. Come down and grab Martial Artistry. This is how we make sure that we're accuracy capped, as well as a crit bonus, and dexterity is really nice. Oh yeah, we're also grabbing Coming Calamity with the Metamorphosis. We're always running at least 1, sometimes 2 Heralds, so that gives us a lot of extra damage. I'm normally running Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder, so we're getting 50% more cold and lightning damage, and we're a pretty even split between those damages as our primary sources, so it's increasing about 90% of our damage there. And we keep coming down, we go all the way around and grab Heart Stopping, Struck Through, and Heartbreaking. And then finally we grab a 3rd Emerald. So we've got 3 Emeralds at the moment sitting in the tree. For bosses, we're anointing Harmonic Generator for that extra magnitude and critical hit chance. And for Sims, we anoint Icebreaker because losing control of your character is a nightmare. We do that by swapping our necks, but I'll cover that off in the gear section. So that's, largely speaking, the tree. It fits at 97. If you're not 97 yet, there's probably a couple of things. You could drop a jewel, probably fit this in at 92, but I'd recommend then that you would probably want to be taking over abundance on the bell still, no matter what, so you'd want to be making some changes there, because you can't kill the bell, and if you can't kill a boss in 1 bell, you want 2 bells, so you want overabundance. Right, so yeah, 93 to 97 fit tree. Reasonably expensive on the jewels now, but let's do a bit of a deep dive into those, and we'll talk about those. We'll talk about the emeralds, we'll talk about the sapphires, we'll talk about the optionality, and we'll talk about where some budget can be saved on fitting a jewel-based tree to this. Well, let's jump into these jewels and a little bit about the optionality we've got here. The jewels are quite interesting. They can be used to shore up certain weaknesses, change what megalomaniac you need, and there's some budget options here as well that I want to talk about that can put the build back down to sort of a mid-high budget rather than, well, I guess, high. Doesn't feel that high yet, mostly because of diamonds. Diamonds are a Farham's best friend. Anyway, these ones here, they give maximum energy shield. They're on the Sapphire. 9% maximum energy shield is additional stun threshold. I just want to point these out in contrast to Hallowed, which gives 20% of maximum energy shield as additional stun threshold. Now, if for some reason on your Megalomaniac, or because you found a really good Megalomaniac that doesn't have a stun resist keystone on there, a stun resist notable on there, say you've found one that gives you Patient Barrier and, I don't know, Maiming Strike, or Patient Barrier and, I don't know, one of the other good crit noses with good one somewhere. Patient Barrier and Overwhelming Strike, and you're like, this thing's amazing, I've got to use it. Yeah, of course you do. So what you would do is you would take these sapphires, which honestly, I mean, this one's well rolled, or well-ish rolled, but let's stick on these. There are none as well rolled as mine, apparently. But you can pick these up for about 10 divines on a reasonably bad roll. So you could get a couple of these, maybe 3 of these, divine them up, and then not run the emeralds, and then you could run the higher damage Megalomaniac instead. So you've got some optionality there that you can work in with these sapphires. I would recommend getting those 4 lines. They're the 4 best lines for this build from a sapphire. But let's talk a little bit about the emeralds. So these emeralds they're expensive. Like if we put them in, I don't think one exists. I think mine is literally the best rolled in existence. But if we look for others, these particular rolls here, 40, 100 divines, they don't exist. I've actually got 2 of them. One of them I crafted myself. The other one I did purchase. Got it for 58 divines. But then I divined it up to be the roll that it's at, which took quite a while. And it was quite an expense. However, there's a little trick to these. So there's some much cheaper version emeralds. And they're much more plentiful for this build. Let's have a look at them with these lines. And instead of attack damage, we've got elemental. Again, this is well rolled. I rolled it up. There's a lot more of these available at peak times, but you can get these a little bit cheaper. So do look around. If we take off the elemental damage entirely, then looking just for these 3 top lines, which are the 3 best lines, pick these up for 4 or 5 divines, and they will honestly do. Then you could do some chaos risking, trying to hit that big last line. This actually might be a good... There might be a gamble here, by the way, trying to hit this elemental damage or attack damage from these jewels. But anyway, there's some online. You can get them. They'll be perfectly sufficient. I believe you could get shock magnitude or something with them without that elemental damage. There are some actually good lines that can still go with this. So shop around. You can definitely get some good jewels there. And consider what you can do with the Sapphire. Consider what the Megalomaniac's doing. Again, I'm getting Maiming Strike from mine. If you can't get... It's very unlikely you'll be able to get something with Maiming Strike unless you get Maiming Strike and something else and then swap the Sapphires in for the Emeralds. This would be something you could do. However, if you can't get Maiming Strike, consider that you should probably put Maim in place of Perpetual Charge and just have to press Perpetual Charge a little bit more... press Charge Staff a little bit more often. That's some optionality there. Focusing in a bit against the Darkness, this is another high-ticket jewel to get it with 4% fire and 4% cold. The really important thing here is the fire damage because it helps with the Ignite of the Bell. Ignite of the Bell gives the Bell 30% more damage. That's why we want to do that. That's the really, really important one there. You could get that with any other line and you'll be fine. But cold damage is going to be the best for overall DPS on that. We don't really need to talk about the control metamorphosis. I don't think it's just a control metamorphosis. And the From Nothing, the Mind Over Matter one's about 10 divines. If that is a stretch, consider the Zealot's Oath one. It's about 1 divine, probably less now. I think it's in the Exalt. Give you access to Sharpened Claw, Tough Claw, and Swift Claw, which is a much cheaper alternative to the Mind Over Matter node. Still give you a significant damage increase over any other nodes. Or you could just drop it entirely and then stick those 3 points somewhere else and take yet another Sapphire or Emerald. That would be also a perfectly prominent use of this. The 3 points I would actually probably recommend, believe it or not, are the Herald damage and the Quarterstaff critical damage if you were going to do that. These are surprisingly powerful nodes. The 24% increased damage that you get from here, and then crit bonus is the best scaling other single node that we could take. So you can actually drop the From Nothing entirely out the build if you want. I like it. It looks pretty. And it is a slight damage increase over the other nodes. So definitely a strong pick. Zealot's Oath is a good secondary, and if you don't want to use it at all, you can run another really well-rolled Emerald. Take these 3 nodes down here. That would be, in fact, that would be even higher budget. You could run another really well-rolled Emerald and those 3 nodes instead of what we're taking over from Nothing, and it would actually be a DPS increase. Particularly in Sims, although I think we might miss the magnitude. So there's another optionality. That's for stepping up a little bit more budget. Hey, we're getting to the point where we've almost got enough jewels. We could just slap an Adorned in, right? Just need to turn them into magic. But, yep, jewels, use them to fix up bits of the build. Use them to shore up stun resist. Work in what jewels you're using with the Megalomaniac. If you think about those pieces going together to fix that particular problem and then give you more damage, it gives you a lot of flexibility in how you approach that and flexibility on the budget too. So let's jump into the first of our 3 skill sets then. This one is specifically for tier 4 bossing, so Breach, Arbiter. There are 2 other skill sets that we'll go over in the video, so if you're interested in those, just jump to them. They'll be in the timeline. There's one for mapping, or Trials of Chaos, and there's one for Delirium as well. However, skills for bossing and what are we trying to hit and what is important. I am going to use the term breakpoint here because I believe this was one. So, with Temper Spell, what I was trying to do was get down to a single bell rotation and reduce the need for overabundance here. And to do that, I found that this DPS number here needed to be 75,000. If I was under that, the boss would either die to subsequent ice strikes, or they would need a second bell, which was made more complex by not having overabundance. So if you want to one bell the boss, 75,000 here is the number we're aiming for. Now, how have we done that? Aside from the skill tree, aside from the passive tree and the gear, we've gone elemental focus. Now, this stops the bell from freezing, but that's okay because everything dies to the bell, the first bell. It doesn't need to be frozen by the bell. So that's why we've dropped heavy frost. That's why I'm thinking that thin ice really isn't doing much for our bossing anymore. Because elemental focus means the bosses don't get frozen, they just get dead. That's fine, that's good. Still running close combat. Heavy swing. We swap primal armament into here off ice strike as well for bossing and concentrated effect. So just full damage bell. Huge bell. Does loads of damage. You'll see in the showcases, it has no issues with just blasting down a tier 4 boss. So you don't have to worry about anything else. Dead. Anyway, ice strike. Martial tempo, heft, rage, innovate, and overcharge. I must stress as well, the corruptions you want for this, you want 2120s on ice strike and the heavy belt. You want a 2120 on Herald of Thunder as well. Just run long shot, ice bite, ambush, glaciation, and lightning mastery. Because of coming calamity, this does actually give us quite a lot of damage. I can demonstrate that quickly. Gives us 4,000 damage on the bell, and if I take out cold, that gives us 3,000 damage on the bell as well. It's about 10% damage on the bell from coming calamity from still running our heralds. Makes it worth running them for single target as far as I'm concerned. Without them, we wouldn't hit that breakpoint. It needs 2 bells. Anyway, so Wind Dancer's up next. We're running Wind Rave and Unbreakable. Unbreakable is more for Sims, but it's just here and it exists, so it's fine. Charge Staff, which you can't get up for the Arbiter fight anymore, but it's got Persistence, Perpetual Charge, Electrocute, Culling Strike, and Blind. Remember that you can swap out Perpetual Charge for Maim if you don't have Maiming Strike on your Megalomaniac, which is quite likely, so that's a swap there based on the jewels that we've just covered. Cast on Critical, this has undergone a massive facelift as well, and this is how we're getting a lot more of our single target damage. Still casting Eye of Winter. With the Eye of Winter, you want a -1, 0%, 0% quality. Quality increases the projectile speed. You don't want that. -1 makes it cheaper. For Voltaic Mark, you want a 723. Why do you want 723? 7 is the lowest level it can be. -1 would make it cheaper, but 23% quality gives you extra shock chance, gives you an extra 2% magnitude of shock. Not shock chance, sorry. Increased effect, which is magnitude. That increases our single target damage a lot. Cold exposure wasn't doing enough, so now we're running chain, deceleration, and inspiration. We want to keep that mana cost down. Inspiration does that, particularly when we're mapping and clearing up to the breach boss. It's kind of annoying, and bursting into the Arbiter in phase 1 costs quite a lot. Deceleration and chain make sure we break those bells really quick. Got Combat Frenzy for our power charge generation, running Profusion and Clarity. Clarity helps deal with the mana cost. This is why we've got the super expensive chest, so that we can fit the support auras. Again, you really do want to get up to about the 275, 280 mark if you want to run Blink. I'll put those skills on soon, and we'll see what that spirit cap is. Herald of Ice we're running. Again, this is mostly for coming calamity, but it helps with proliferation and clearing up to the breach boss. Cold Mastery, Magnified Effect, Conduction, Immolate, and Coursing Current. Mine's still level 20. You could go 2120 here. Basically, you want everything to be 2120, apart from the gems in here, which you won't mess around with. And then Charge Infusion, which is running Herbalism and Precision. You arguably don't need to run Precision at all, but we had the spare spirit, and I don't like seeing the little bar there. It upsets me. That's what we're running for bossing. You may notice there's no Grim Feast. That's fine. You can press your potion on the way up to the breach boss. There's no souls on Arbiter anyway, so we don't need to run Grim Feast. Charge Infusion gives us a little bit more damage if we do manage to freeze. Arguably, you could swap out Charge Infusion for Ghost Dance and be fine, although you do get those charges on the way up to the breach boss. So there's a few options there, but this is what I'm running to do the 1 bell bossing. That's passive setup. Let's have a look at the gear. We'll have a quick gloss over it, where there's some changes that could be made and why we're using the neck we're using and other things like that. And then we'll cover off the tier 4 bossing showcase. Then we'll show the changes for Sims. Then we'll show off the sims. And at some point, I will show off the blink setup, which is a bit better for mapping. Before we get onto the gear, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the bell and shock in particular, mostly to correct something I think I gave a little bit of misinformation on my last guide. So the way shock works in this game is the highest value shock can just be applied. So if there's a 50% shock magnitude and you apply a 70% shock magnitude with an ability, the 70% shock magnitude will be applied. However, with Tempest Bell, there is something reasonably important about the impact. And if we read here, it says, elemental ailments applied to the bell cause its shockwaves to deal extra damage. Now, how much extra damage do we ask? Well, go to the shockwave. It is 30% more damage per elemental ailment. And elemental ailments are ignite, chill, freeze, shock, and electrocute. Ignite, chill, freeze, and shock we are doing all the time with Ice Strike. I believe it can contribute to electrocute as well, because it does do lightning damage. But that's the main reason we're running electrocute on charge staff. It's to give us that much faster electrocution on the bell, because it will instantly zap it. Doesn't always come into play on the Arbiter, because we don't necessarily get any charges to get charge staff up. But it works on the Breach boss. It makes Tempest Bell do a lot of damage, but that's what we're pushing for. That's why we're pushing to deal those 5 elemental ailments. That's why it's important to have the fire damage for the ignite. It's important to have the lightning damage, important to have the cold damage, so that we can really boost the damage of that bell. It's the real crux of the boss killing element of this build. Right, that's enough about my bell. Let's get into the gear. Gear then, the place where you can sink some divines. We'll start off with the cheaper and important stuff, but nonetheless important to quality of life. You're going to be wanting to run a Stone Charm. Getting stunned in Sims sucks, so just run one of these. Get increased charges so that you've got more than 120 charges. The three charge slots will be fine to keep you perfectly safe. For your Mana Flask, the only thing there's a variant here, by the way, is the neck, and we'll do a bit later on to cover off the sim variant of the neck. So this is definitely the bossing variant of the gear, but it is just a one gear piece that changes. You want a Melting Maelstrom, it solves all your mana problems. Even if you can't get things like Clarity and stuff online, you'll be fine. You want the Potent Ultimate Life Flask, you want one with increased amount recovered, and increased charges is pretty good as well. That heals your shield when you're below max, and Feast doesn't manage to top you up, or indeed if you're not running Grim Feast like we are here and you happen to stand in something on a boss fight, it can happen. That will solve that problem. For your Hoas, you just want the best roll you can afford. The most attack speed, the most lightning damage, the most of all of the stats. Get the best one you can. For Ingenuity, you want the best one you can. If you need resistance, get some resistance on it. If not, just get better Ingenuity. Bigger belt, better, basically. On your feet, this is somewhere you can actually fit some rarity, but movement speed I find is the most important because we're plodding around a lot. Next up is a bit of a currency sink. So if you want to do the blink build and have the bossing capabilities and have capability to run all 3 of the gem sets that we're going to talk about today, you're going to be wanting to hit, I believe it's 275 spirit, but we will double check that. You're going to want something like this in the 1400s to 500 range. I would say probably 1400 and 500 and it's about 18. You can afford to drop 2 spirit, really, I believe. Everything fits. You can take off some auras and fit this with a lower budget chest, but you won't be able to fit blink on if you do that. So chest is probably going to be a big piece of this budget. They're going to be about 50 divines at least, maybe more, if you need resistances and high level resistances on them, or if you want good suffixes. For your rings, you want damage lines, resistances that you need. One of your rings you really want attack damage as mana. You really want that on a breach ring with attack modifiers plus 50%, because that will help solve all of your mana issues. You'll put the bell down, your mana just comes back. That's nice. Your other ring, again, resistances, attack damage lines. I've opted for rarity over damage. I think I can afford to sacrifice a bit of damage here. And any stats that you need as well. Found getting some strength here helps with getting all our support gems on. We end up with quite a few. On the helmet, you can get +1 power charge corrupt here, by the way, which is a bit of a stretch item, and that's very nice, but I've used it to stack up a bunch of rarity. You want something with over 400 energy shield just to keep your shield nice and high. On the weapon, I can't stress enough how important critical hit chance is if you're following this build. Loads of artillery goes into crit hit chance. It's almost more important than fizz damage. I could get a higher fizz damage staff than this with lower crit chance. My damage would go down if all the other lines were equal. If I had 30% more fizz damage and 10 flat, but 1% less crit, I guarantee I would do less base damage. I would do less damage overall. So make sure you're looking for that crit hit chance. Attack speed as well is really important. Crit damage bonus is indeed a bonus. You can sack that off for some more mana regen or some stats or something like that. And you want percent physical flat and flat physical. Your third line can be anything you want. Any high elemental roll is fine. Any elemental damage is fine. Whatever you can afford, really. It's a big money sink, the weapon. Something good is going to cost probably between 80 and 150 divines, depending on where you shop around. That's going to be the sort of gear you're going to need to hit this number and be able to one-bell the boss on this build. So let's showcase this. We're going to do a tier 4 breach and a tier 4 arbiter. Then we'll cover off. In fact, before we do that, I'm going to quickly cover off the mapping build, because the mapping build is... Yeah, we'll show off the mapping build first. Just the skill setup. And show off how much spirit we need for that, just so we can confirm the chest. So to confirm, the spirit requirement to fit blink is actually 270. We're still running clarity at the moment, but we can fit it on with 270. So we'll go over these skill changes. If you did want to fit blink onto this just to quickly get some maps done and you wanted a little bit more speed, this is what you would change around, and this is how you would run the build. So first up, Temper Spell. If we're in mapping or Trials of Chaos, you're probably going to want to place more bells and have a smoother flow of combat. So we put Overabundance on, Close Combat, Heavy Swing, Heft, and Elemental Focus. We don't need the bell to be freezing or shocking anything in maps or in Temples of Chaos, so we just run like this. Bear in mind, this isn't the Sims build. This is purely for Temples of Chaos, or just getting a bit, like doing ritual maps or breach maps a bit faster. Saying you wanted to do that on this build and just check that spirit requirement. Ice Strike has also undergone some changes. We're running Martial Tempo, Primal Armament, Rage, Innovate, and Concentrated Effect. We just blast any rare. It should just one-shot any rare. Easy enough in maps. Herald of Thunder. This is now going to be serving more purpose because it's paired up with Herald of Ice and will actually be working a lot better, especially clearing maps. Longshot, Ice Bite, Ambush, Glaciation, Lightning Mastery. No change there. We have got Grim Feast onto the build, and we've also swapped to our other neck with Icebreaker on it and +3 minion skills. This will help us with Grim Feast healing. An Icebreaker will stop us getting frozen in maps. That does become a concern in maps, the same as it's a concern in Sims. Charge Staff has undergone no change. Persistence, Perpetual Charge, Electrocute, Culling Strike, Blind. Cast and Critical, no change. Eye of Winter, Voltaic Mark, Chain, Deceleration, Inspiration. Combat Frenzy, no change, but you can drop Clarity from this, and that's how it will fit with 270 Spirit, which means you can cheap out on this chest a little bit. Herald of Ice, no change. Cold Mastery, Magnified Effect, Conduction, Immolate, Coursing Current. This will be helping to clear now. And what we have swapped out, we've swapped out Charge Infusion for Blink. We don't need the extra damage. We can get away with just having Blink there. And we've swapped out Wind Dancer for Grim Feast. It's better to have... We don't need to... It doesn't matter. Things won't hit us that hard to hurt that much that we need the extra evasion. We're still sitting at 61%, which is fine for mapping. It's fine for Temples of Chaos. And what that means is we can just keep ourselves topped up over health without us having to press the healing potion as much. We can just blink around and do what we want. Obviously, it's not as fast as a Temporalis build, but it'll do in a pinch if you want to run some maps. I will be looking to put together a Flicker Strike based build where we swap out Charge Staff that's much better for mapping, that's specifically for mapping, but that's going to undergo quite a few changes to the build. This very much is just if you want to speed up a little bit to do some other content that isn't Sims or Tier 4 bossing. Alright, we'll do a full showcase of a Tier 82 breach so you guys can see that it walks through without too much hassle. Or without any hassle, really. It works quite well. More damage means more everything, and we have enough shield to not get one shot by anything. Even the boss can get slammed by the boss, which is fine. And we're off. There's lots of Eyes of Winter, lots of Voltaic Marks, but mana is fine. Our health will only, our shield will only come back if we actually press our health potion. But we are still running. Ooh, that was explosive. Had to press the health potion there. We went down like a tiny bit. I think I'm probably still on some burning ground or something. I swear they've changed the map. There's like 2 breach maps now. Slightly different layouts. I'm sure of it. I'm sure I just haven't been out of the breach for that long, right? So the aim here is to kill the boss in a single bell. And we have spec for that. We will take this to the Arbiter as well. We won't kill the Arbiter in a single bell, because the Arbiter's got a silly mechanic at the start where he takes less damage. Which is just lame. Means we'll have to actually hit him. Might even be better to take overabundance to the Arbiter, but we'll find out. We want to save our power charges, really. We can. Get some more. Oh no, I used them at just the wrong time. Panic. Panic and roll to the boss. Panic. We'll come back for the loot. We'll be fine even if charge staff goes down. There we go. Single bell. Pretty fast now. Pretty fast. Let's see if we get some Hands of Wisdom in action, eh? Get a bit of action. Get a bit of hand action. Oh, we got a diamond! It's a megalomaniac, isn't it? For some reason, the item's not... Well, brilliant. Anyway, that's how it kills the bosses. Let's jump into another showcase. Right. Next up, we'll go to an Arbiter. We're going to do it with the 1 bell, no overabundance build. I think it'll be fine. Sure, it'll be fine. I'm sure his damage reduction won't make me beg for that 2nd bell early. Right? Right? Ah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Of course it'll be fine. Untested is the best kind of tested. Straight to production. Let's go. Let's fight. I have to dodge things sometimes. I have to do a mechanic. Oh no. I wonder what sort of tablet we're going to get today. Hopefully a ritual one. God, that'd be nice. Really good ritual one. Worth millions of divines. Worth a mirror tablet. Let's go. Charge staff's going to be pretty limp. Charge infusion's going to be pretty limp in this particular fight. But we should be okay. Oh, we can still get those bells out pretty fast. No mana problems. Well, kind of. Not a problem. As soon as he goes into the phase, just one. Oh, look, a diamond! Right, next showcase. So for those interested in what that diamond was, I was going to sell it unidentified, but I accidentally hit identify all when I wanted to identify this. It was a Prism of Belief +2 to skeletal mages. This one was a medium, small, reasonable roll. That's pretty much worthless, but that's a lot of divines. So, last skill gem setup of the guide. This is specifically for Sims, and I will explain why we've made some of the changes here. Sims is a very different beast. If you're not killing everything in one hit, you do need some crowd control, and there's elites out there that stop you killing things in one hit, and then those things can kill you. So, we're looking for crowd control, we're looking for high damage, and we're looking to deal with some very, very specific problems. That main problem being stun and freeze. So, it was in the mapping setup anyway, but in case you skipped over that bit and jumped here, you're going to be wanting to run a neck with Icebreaker on it and +3 of all minion skills. The reason that you want to run this +3 all minion skills is its effect on Grim Feast, which I will demonstrate now in case you missed it earlier. 299 energy pill, shield per remnant, 454. You That +3 skills is invaluable in Sims. It's so much more healing. As well as Icebreaker, stopping you getting frozen. Any crowd control in Sims is absolutely end of. We're running the Stone Charm. We've got the Megalomaniac. We've got our Sapphire Jewels. Dealing with stun. We need to deal with freeze too. So that's really important that we switch that neck. I know this says it's the skills section, but it's just that one gear change that we're covering off there. And I can't reiterate how important that is. Also, make sure if you're looking at this in the pub in or anything, that you're on the right bit. Breathe. The skills. So for Tempest Bell, we're running over abundance. The flow of combat and having a bell in the pocket is really important. It will it's nice to have one in the pocket. It helps you play better. It means you can put it down when you need it. Close combat, still great. Heavy swing, great. Heft, great. Magnified effect. We want the bell. We don't care so much about the bell's damage, but we do want it to be chilling, shocking, well, particularly chilling and freezing. So we want it afflicting ailments because it's a really big crowd control piece, especially in the later waves. On Ice Strike, this becomes like a hard hitter. We want to be trying to one-shot stuff with Ice Strike now. We're running Martial Tempo, Primal Armament, Rage for that Rage support, Innovate, and Concentrated Effect. Herald of Thunder, no change. Long Shot, Ice Bite, Ambush, Glaciation, and Lightning Mastery. Running Grim Feast, be at level 21-20, much energy shield as you can. Charge Staff, running Persistence, Perpetual Charge, Electrocute, Culling Strike, and Blind. Cast on Critical, running Eye of Winter, Voltaic Mark, Chain, Deceleration, and Inspiration. A note here, if you're having mana problems, you can take out Voltaic Mark for Sims. You can swap that for something like Scattershot or something that helps this hit more. That doesn't make it cost more mana. Scattershot probably be fine. Although it only affects the things that come out the Eye of Winter, and not the Eyes of Winter themselves. But you can swap that out. That's fine if you want to save a bit of mana there for Sims. Sims can be a bit mana hungry, but you should be okay. On Combat Frenzy, we're running Profusion and Clarity. On Wind Dancer, we're running Wind Wave and Unbreakable. And then Charge Infusion, we're running Herbalism and Precision. So we're running a much more defensive tree. Herald of Ice doesn't work here, so we're letting Herald of Thunder carry our AoE, and Ice Strike's going to be doing the majority of the work for us. Let's showcase this thing in a Tier 4 Sims and show how well it can do. I will start the sim from where it gets interesting, and not necessarily where it begins, so Wave 10. We will see how this goes. It's going to go fine. So we're using the sim setup. We've got slightly different setup of gear and a different neck, running Icebreaker and Minion skills for Sims for that extra Grim Feast healing. I did cover that in the skills section, but if you skipped over it and you just jumped here and you're following the path of building, must stress again, probably for the third or fourth time, make sure you are using the right skill gem setup and the right gear setup for where you're going. Slightly different skills for Sims. Sims is a scarier place. We're not going for big burst one-hit damage in Sims. We're going for sustainability and control of rapidly spawning, very strong, rare monsters with shitty abilities. Hopefully we get to see some of those. I'll try and point them out in the flurry of combat. They glow. They're the only elites that glow. The fact that they glow mean they're scary. They have like little hammers over their heads. I think they look like hammers, but they're probably shields. But they make everyone invulnerable. And if they appear, you have to pop them, because otherwise you get popped. I was trying to run Sims with no overabundance, and it was looking really good until the moment that one of those rares spawned 3 seconds before the bosses, and all of a sudden didn't have 2 bells. So definitely run overabundance for Sims. I don't think we need it for bossing at all anymore. Not at this stage, but I will have already spoken in the past about the numbers that I found comfortable to one-hit the boss and remove the reliance on overabundance, and it's very much the bell number we got there. Anyway, we are blasting arse through Sims, as usual. If you want to see the first 10 waves, of course, I stream this pretty much all the time. Well, most evenings have been, or streaming stuff on the character, so feel free to come in and have a chat. Maybe hit that subscribe button, you know, get notified of when I'm live. Only about 7:30 GMT, but sometimes it's a bit earlier, depending on my schedule, work schedule. Anyway, that's enough about me and the channel. Let's get on to... See, this is how easy Sims are with this build. I can just talk about other crap, right? It's just live. It's just live recording. You can also play with one hand if you want. until you need to, like, maybe press the bell. But even the bell absorbs so much mana at this point. If you get low on mana, you can just put the bell down, and then you're full mana again. It's freaking amazing. The boss is going to spawn in, so yeah. So once you get, that's mana leech, and that's why you want mana leech on your ring, right? Because then it gets pushed up by the ingenuity. It's another reason we're taking manifold method. It's to really sort out the mana sustain. Mana becomes a very horrible problem on this, and a lot of things we're doing are to resolve that. Including the boost of spirit. Running clarity and the 30% mana regen actually felt quite good. It was worth the spirit investment and the chest upgrade, but you can sacrifice that, push your mana potion a bit more, and it's fine. It's not a problem. It can still do this with the lower spirit investment, so don't think that you have to go and spend 500 divines to make this work. You can definitely do it on a lot more of a budget. You don't even need the expensive jewels. Just run sapphires with stun resist, and then you can get a different megalomaniac and all sorts. Optionalities there by going across the 4 jewels, and also it can be more budget friendly in a lot of ways. You just shore up specific weaknesses with the jewels, like you can't get a good megalomaniac. But anyway, hopefully I spoke about that earlier. If I didn't, ask me in the comments. That was one of the scary guys, but you see how they weren't that scary and they just disappeared. We didn't even use the bell. So are we going 3 for 3 on diamonds? This is the real question. Diamonds are a Farham's best friend, as the song goes. No, it's a closed helm. Of course, it's a closed helm. It's alright, we got that really good diamond. But there you go, guys. There's the showcase of the sort of 3 endgame things I wanted to show off with this iteration of the build. It's not very fast at mapping. It plods around at 35% movement speed. That's its weakness. I will be looking to do a ritual farm, so I'll be looking to work on something that's a much faster mapper around this base. My base instinct is to swap charge staff with flicker strike and do something and go back into power charges quite heavily. So expect that to be coming. I don't think there's much more we can push on this build now, other than if you get items with bigger numbers, it will be slightly faster, but it's a single bell rotation. We've got it down to 5 buttons to kill bosses, so this feels like it's in the right place for end game farming, for tier 4 bossing, tier 4 sims, and actually it's not bad at Trials of Chaos, because you can stuff Blink on this build, and those bosses are really easy, so you can do that with it too. I might have put a bonus section earlier in the video about that. In fact, I will have done. I will have put a bonus section in, but I'm not doing a showcase because Trials of Chaos made me want to... Happy time. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope the journey's been interesting. Learned some things. I will definitely be league starting this in 0.2. Looks like that's going to be a month away from the latest news about the races and what GGG is saying there. We'll be continuing some farms and things and working on some other things around the monk in the meantime. But yeah, if you're not subscribed already, it'd be great to have you on board. And yeah, catch you in the next video.